the next 5 to 10 years, the idea of a 4-day work week, even if it's not the new normal, it's going to be a lot more normal than it is today.
Welcome back to Closer Look on this Monday, the third day of November. How was your weekend?
November. I spent the weekend cleaning outside.
Same.
It's that time of year.
And crying in my beer.
Yeah, and watching baseball. I'll say it again. That was a fantastic World Series as a basebal fan.
Oh, it starts with F.
Yeah, it was a great World Series. And it just shows you baseball's the greatest game. And it just shows how baseball breaks your heart. The Jays should have won that game. It was their World Series win. That Ernie Clement could hit that ball where he did, and that Andy Pages could climb over his teammate to make that catch is insane to me. It was insane to me that they didn't win that game.
Yeah.
They had lots of different chances.
Heartbreaker. I mean, really, they should have closed it out in Game 6, and that didn't happen. And the beauty of Game 7, nothing matters. Anything that you've done for 160-plus games does not matter.
It doesn't. And the drama of that game. So they were up 4-2, right? Muncy hits that monster homer against Savage. Savage, who's been amazing.
Yeah.
The Jays would not be where they were without Trey Savage.
Absolutely.
He hits that homer, pulls within one. Then in the top of the ninth, their closer has 2 outs away.
Yeah.
And Rojas, who's a great old baseball player, been around for a long time,
Sure.
has not hit a homer against a right-handed pitcher all year. It's a homer. I mean, it was wild. And then Will Smith crushes it in the 11th. But that catch in the 9th, and then even Vladdy, he led off. Did he lead off at the bottom of the 9th? Or one out in the bottom of the 9th, he hit a double?
Yeah,
right?
You know what? It's all a blur.
It's just if we felt like they were going to win that game, it was a no-brainer. And if you look at the stats, LA didn't deserve to win that World Series. The Jays beat them in every possible way, except in the game. And that's what matters, right? But wild moment for Canadian baseball fans. The country was glued to their sets. I'm sure they'll all be cheering for the Leafs now, right?
Well, it's pretty bad when you put all your faith in the hands of the Toronto Maple Leafs now.
Yeah.
Oof, tough one.
I haven't watched a second of hockey. I've been so
you know what? I
immersed in
haven't either.
baseball.
I've been so consumed with baseball.
I know.
Yeah. So, okay.
You okay, though?
I'm all right.
You can't. We'll stop talking about it, but you can't feel any. If that was my team that was there, I'd just be so grateful that they were in that series. Whether you win or lose, the Jays, you could say the Jays won that World. Like that was just they did everything but win the World Series.
Yep,
they did everything but actually win the game. Yep. And LA kind of stole it at the end, and it happens. Even the double play bets turned in the game was a great double play.
Oh,
right?
my goodness!
It was a beautiful play.
Yep.
So, anyways,
there's always next year.
Long winter ahead, my friend.
When do pitchers and catchers report?
Mid-February. I was checking on the calendar. We got three and a half dark months.
Yeah. Okay. What else we got? Hoekstra.
Hoekstra's busy week in the news. Yeah, a lot of stuff that we've talked about on the podcast has been in the news lately.
For sure.
We started with Pete Hoekstra, the U.S. ambassador to Canada. Obviously, everybody read his comments. A lot of reports out there that he kind of had some angry words for Ontario's wet rep in Washington, David Patterson.
Yeah.
And that story really resonated. It got a lot of attention. There's been a lot of columns written about whether he's the right guy to be doing this job, that's not the way a diplomat is supposed to behave. Then we hear from Prime Minister Carney that he actually did apologize to Donald Trump for Doug Ford's ad. Like I've said before, just to be behind the scenes on some of these discussions that are happening right now. For the record, Trump has not actually gone through with his threat to bump the tariff by another 10%.
Correct.
That hasn't happened yet. And, knowing the way President Trump operates, by tomorrow we could be back on track and negotiations could still be ongoing. But, of course, we have the federal budgets coming out tomorrow.
That's right, yeah.
And a lot of we know a lot about how this government is going to steer the finances for the next little while and what their grand plan is. And because there's been a lot of, I think Canadians are patient. They're willing to give this new government the time to figure out what it is, but people are waiting to see and want some answers on how we're going to go forward.
And another fair question, is this current government going to be the government?
Yes.
Because we don't know what's going to happen in terms of support of the budget.
Absolutely. A lot of chatter about whether there could be an election called over this. Yeah. I proved that we were wrong on all our bets for baseball, so I don't want to be a betting man. But no. I don't know if that'll happen. I don't know what would be the advantage for the NDP? They're in shambles right now. They don't have a leader.
Right?
Would they really vote against a budget to trigger another election when they have no chance of doing it? And they might even fare worse if that happened. But Carney, I think yesterday in his comments was talking about how he's ready. He's so confident in this budget, he's willing to go to another election over it. So we shall see what happens. But big day tomorrow. Just for the record, too, our team at Parliament today in the Trillium will be in Ottawa for the lockup, bringing you all the coverage you need to know about the budget when it goes live at 4 o'clock.
Good stuff. Okay, let's talk 4-day work week. It seems to be rearing its head again.
Yeah, this has been, we talked a lot about sort of hour by hour, the headlines over AI really catch our attention,
Exactly,
right?
yeah,
You saw Amazon, I think last week or the week before, cut like 14,000 jobs.
Crazy.
Saying that they've become so much more efficient with the rapid advancements of AI that they were able to eliminate like 14,000 jobs.
And
right?
robots too, right?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah,
robots
yeah. I think they said they're
Amazon?
up to 1 million robots now. Yeah. So, and this is the world we're living in now, right? Where we're not quite sure. We're still in the early days of AI that we're not really quite sure how it's going to impact the workday. I think it was Bill Gates, the CEO of Zoom this week, and some other influential CEOs south of the border talking about how they think the advent of AI could lead to a 3-day work week. Forget the 4-day work week, it could be a 3-day work week, maybe even a 2-day work week. But then the question becomes, well, what kind of jobs are those going to be that are left?
Right.
Are there actually going to be jobs for everyone who wants to work, which is the concern right now. We're seeing layoffs in all kinds of sectors right now. So there's people that paint the totally our days are numbered, we're doomed scenario. Or then you have other people who say, no, this is going to be great for everybody. We're going to hit a point now where we're actually going to be able to enjoy life and have shorter work weeks, and everybody's going to benefit from this. You and I might be long gone by the time we know the answer to that, right? But it is interesting. We did have a chat last year about the 4-day work week with Joe Connor.
Joe Connor, yeah, good guy.
He
good
was,
Irishman.
Yeah, he's kind of one of the world's leading experts on short work weeks, 4-day work weeks. And we had a good in-depth chat with him about sort of how you kind of break through the sort of what people think about. They think, 4-day work week, people aren't doing anything, but really what the goal behind the 4-day work week is and whether it's actually possible for it to work in a lot of organizations. Because we're also at a time now where people are saying, we're going to see a 3-day work week. We're also seeing a lot of companies bringing their workers back to the office, right? So you have this kind of tug of war of what's going on. And like I said, I think things are changing so quickly that we don't really know where we're going to end up in 5 years, what it's going to look like. But it's a great opportunity to go back and listen to Joe's conversation because when you hear 4-day work week, a lot of things go through your mind about what that actually means. It was a great chat with Joe. I think it's a good time to listen to it again. What's the motivation? I mean, is it we hear so much about burnout nowadays? Are these companies that are coming forward and want to do this? They've finally realized that they're working people too hard?
Yeah, I would say there's a spread of motivations. Probably the single biggest one is using this as a source of potential competitive advantage when it comes to attracting and retaining talent. So this is something which I've been working on shorter work week projects for about 6 years now. This is much less of a niche thing than it was pre-pandemic, but it's still quite novel. For most organizations that do this, they may be one of the few in their industry that is offering this. So it's a really compelling way to differentiate your employee value proposition, particularly if, for example, you're a mid-sized tech company, maybe you can't pay as much as Meta or Google for engineers. This is a creative way that you can remain competitive. If you're a nonprofit organization, maybe you can't pay as much as the private sector. So I think it's one flexibility option that's available to organizations, which can really help them to stand out.
Joe, what do you have to keep in mind when it comes to ensuring the productivity and efficiency when making that switch?
Well, I would say one of the starting points is, we've seen in the last 10 or 15 years, we've had a global financial crisis, we've had a global pandemic, and you always hear in the media year on year this kind of to and fro in terms of it's an employer's market, it's an employee's market, the trade-offs and retrenchment one year and maybe gains the next year. My view is that misses the point in that most of the organizational science and the research is very clear. Productivity and employee well-being are not competing forces, they're complementary forces. And if you've got a happy, healthy workforce that's able to show up, be focused, and bring their best selves at work, you're probably going to have an organization that's well positioned to be productive and to be profitable. So I think that's a really important thing that often I find the conversation maybe misses the point a little bit around.
Mm-hmm. Let's get this out of the way, Joe. How many hours a week do you work?
I work a reduced work week. I run my own organization, so I am not going to say that I work a pure 4-day work week. I typically would try to clock off by about 12 or 1 o'clock on a Friday. I try to keep my Fridays pretty meeting free. But I also, because I run my own organization, I have the flexibility to take that time back maybe at other times during the week that other people would not. But I certainly have learned a huge amount from all of the organizations I've worked with over the years, who tend to be very innovative, forward-thinking companies that are doing very interesting things in order to be able to maximize and optimize their productive output in a shorter space of time.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we should have had our CEO down here to listen to this interview, or we should make sure he listens to it after. But is there kind of that magic point, like where, like, is that there that like, it's 35 hours the magic point? Or I'm sure it differs depending on the industry people are in. But what do you think of that, Joe?
I think you're right in saying that, it really depends on your starting point and your end goal. What might be success for one organization, as I said to you guys when we were chatting beforehand, if you're a law firm where people are regularly working 10 or 12-hour days now, then obviously the objective for today is not how do we get to a 4-day work week. The objective is how do we allow people to maybe finish work at 5 or 6 o'clock instead of 8 or 9 o'clock. But then for many organizations, the gold standard is this 4-day, 32-hour work week that I've worked with hundreds of organizations at this point to implement. And I guess, the point here is that I don't know where this ends up, or I don't know where this is going. But what I do know is that before COVID ever came along, we had the productive capacity and the technological tools at our disposal to do more with less. And we've created workplaces that are full of all this clutter, unnecessary and overlong meetings, digital distractions, interruptions in people's, task switching and flow, processes that are maybe out of date. And once you create a framework and an incentive structure, and I say incentive very deliberately because the shorter work week is not a perk. It's an incentive to drive operational excellence, efficiencies, and changes in work practices. And when you position it in that way, people are very focused and motivated to do what's necessary to find those efficiencies in order to be able to make this work.
And just so we're clear, Joe, a shorter work week doesn't mean a 10-hour day for 4 days a week or reducing pay. It's the same pay that you were getting prior to the shift, and it's actually a reduction in hours. It's not just, splitting that up differently.
Yes, it's not moving around the deck chairs so that you're doing the same number of hours in fewer days and longer days. Actually, again, most of the science around this would suggest that your 9th and 10th hour may not be as productive on a Wednesday as your 1st and 2nd hour on a Thursday. So it can actually be counterproductive to operate that, especially in knowledge work. But the point here is kind of almost about, this is not a time for money trade-off. This is not about saying that we're going to ask you to work fewer hours so that we can reduce your pay. Because what this is actually about is a time for performance accountability trade-off. It's saying that we will offer you this reduction in work time, but in exchange for a commitment to driving productivity and efficiency within the organization. And, a lot of people, shorter work weeks have a bad rap. A lot of people think it's kind of a policy for lazy Gen Z woke people that don't want to work. And the reality is that in the organizations that have done this, if you're somebody that shows up to a 5-day work week and you're a coaster, you would probably prefer to coast through 5 days than to work 4 days where you've got this elevated sense of accountability to your organizational metrics, to your colleagues, and to actually getting work done.
That's a great point. Scott's a coaster. He fits that. He fits that perfect. He's in the sauna for an hour a day. He's working out 2 other hours a day. I mean, he's already working like a 4-hour week. So,
but I still get my stuff done.
Yeah, and I'm just kidding. I'm totally joking, of course, Joe. Scott's very much like that. He gets it done, right? He comes into work. It's work the second he's in there. So it actually would benefit the person who works like you, for real. The question I wanted to ask was, we hear about burnout, like I talked at the beginning of this. How bad is burnout in Canada?
Burnout is effectively a global workplace epidemic at this point. The most recent major global state of workplace burnout survey has burnout at around 42%. And burnout is defined under the WHO definition as people are feeling exhaustion, people are feeling cynicism, and people are feeling depleted productivity. It's not one or two of those three, it's all three. And so one of the interesting things from that study is that we saw a comparison where organizations that were offering reduced hour schedules, like the types of models that we've been discussing, their level of burnout was at 9%. So what we're talking about here is potentially, if you get this right, unlocking a third of your workforce from that feeling of exhaustion, cynicism, depleted productivity to actually being able to show up and perform at the level that your organization needs. And I think that, it is a solution that tackles the root cause of burnout, which is often, workload challenges and workload demands. And I think if you kind of mirror that against another study that we've seen recently, some research out of Oxford University looked at 90 different well-being programs and interventions, things like yoga classes, sleep apps, meditation workshops. And what it found when it looked at all 90 of these, it found that one had any positive effect on employee well-being, people being able to volunteer for charity as part of their work week. So effectively, corporations are investing all of this time and money in all of these programs, which, they're maybe a nice to have. They potentially help some people on an individual level, but they do not tackle the root causes that is leading to this huge issue with employee burnout that we right now have.
Joe, you must experience a lot of common misconceptions or concerns from senior leadership or companies that are about to make that transition. What are they, and how do you address them?
I think that the 4-day work week in particular has been a little bit of a victim of its own success, in that there's been so much, headlines, buzz about the concept. I think there are a lot of myths and misconceptions about what it is, and these include things like people assuming that it's Fridays off for everyone, when, in most customer-facing, service-oriented organizations, you're talking about devising schedules in order to make sure you can maintain service coverage through the work week. But I would say that the biggest challenge with this is, asking a CEO, do you really believe, if you think that a shorter work week is a crazy idea, do you really believe if your people are working 5 days, 40 hours, do you think you're getting 40 hours worth of productive, focused effort out of people right now? And if the answer to that is no, then the next question should be, if you believe that we have all of these inefficiencies, all of this unlocked potential in organizations, Slack's recent survey said that desk workers, 41% of their time is spent on low value adding activities. So work about work, meetings, administration. Do you think that you can go into your team and say, tomorrow, I want you to get 20% more efficient, and it's just going to happen? Or do you think that you need some kind of an incentive where people feel, actually, if we're going to do this, if we're going to change and transform the way that we operate, there needs to be something more in it for us than just creating time and space for more work? I think that's the kind of psychological thing where people look at the data around 4-day work week and they say, how is this possible? They're working less hours and they're saying revenue is up, productivity is up. That is because people are so engaged in the process of making their organizations better, because the thing that they're being offered is so life-changing and so transformative.
You talk about the future, Joe. Let's go back in time for a bit. It was 1926 that Henry Ford took his factories from working 7 days a week down to 5 so that his employees could have a couple of days of rest, time to spend with the family. So from 7 to 5, so I guess the logical question then would be, is 5 to 4 the next evolution of what a work week will look like in your opinion?
I think it's the next big step. I think it's the direction that we're heading. Even as somebody who's a huge advocate on this issue, I don't know if we'll ever get to a world where the 4-day week is quite as universal as the 5-day week may have been post Henry Ford. I think that the future of work is probably going to look a little bit more fractional. We're going to see lots of different things happening. But I think one thing is for sure, that in the next 5 to 10 years, the idea of a 4-day work week, even if it's not the new normal, it's going to be a lot more normal than it is today. It's going to be something that is much more routine. You probably won't want to have people like me on to talk about it, because so many organizations are going to be doing this and doing this in a very routine way.
Do more in 4, right? That's what Joe says. And I got to be honest, after the time change yesterday, kind of dragging my ass a bit. So for me, it's a 4-day work week.
Yeah.
I didn't do much today.
Well, I don't make another joke, so we just watched that. I was already making fun of you a couple of times. I'm sorry I do that so much. It just comes
easy
to me right away, and I just think I need to say that. I just can't bite my tongue, so I have to do it. But we were going to talk about daylight savings time, actually. I asked a couple experts to come on the show to talk about that, because there's all kinds of talk about that.
Why do we still do it?
Yeah, and
really?
And it does impact your health, believe it or not.
It's crazy how 1 hour can just throw you off for 2 or 3 days.
Now, this is the better time when you actually get to save the hour. In the springtime, it just destroys us.
Terrible.
Pushing ahead. But you know what? You are the hardest worker at Village, so whatever hours they want you to work are good for me. I'll make sure I tell everybody that.
You're good for my ego. All right, let's get out of here. Closer look at villagemedia.ca. What do you think about the potential of a 4-day work week, maybe even a 3-day work week? We'd love to get your thoughts, so drop us a note. Closerlookpodcast.ca is our website. Check it out and subscribe for free. We'll send you content 6 days a week. Tonight's show produced, as always, by Derek Turner. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.